They say that love heals everything and that the heart of the solution to all suffering is self-love. But what does that actually mean? How do you actually go about practicing self-love and building this muscle, sort of, or building, maybe even creating a relationship with yourself, the most important person in your life? This is a path, a journey that I've been on myself for the last couple years or so, probably really my entire life, but consciously, intentionally developing that self-love for the last couple of years. And it wasn't too long ago that I was searching for videos just like this. And while some of them were helpful, others were very surface level. I'm going to share with you some things that I learned that helped me go from self-loathing, self-punishing, and basically just throwing a self-pity party at any opportunity that I had, although often unconsciously, to where I am now, which is having a solid, real relationship with myself, where I practice loving myself regularly and showing up for me and giving myself, all parts of myself, the attention, the love, the care, the space, and the acknowledgement that those parts of me deserve. Because the truth is, there are parts of us, as we go throughout life and we have these different experiences and we receive different programming, conditioning, and expectations of other people about how we should be, a lot of these do end up sort of taking us over and taking a hold of your mind, of your entire being, and you sort of just forget about yourself. And as we experience life, we often begin to ignore or hide those parts of us that we feel do not fit in with society or with that conditioning or with our own beliefs about how we should be or how we should act. But this is a disservice that you're doing to yourself. And it's not your fault. Usually we begin to do this at a very young age, and it's part of a coping mechanism so that we can feel more safe or adapt more to our environment at that time. However, the problems arise when we carry on with this throughout the rest of our life, and it becomes a subconscious pattern that we're not even aware of and begins to basically control your life and take you further and further away from yourself and who you really are. And that is not self-love. That is basically the opposite of self-love. Pretending to be someone who you are not, hiding parts of you, feeling ashamed or embarrassed or scared to share parts of you is an act of self-abandonment. And likewise, when certain feelings arise and you choose to suppress them or ignore them, you are, again, abandoning yourself. And many of us go throughout life doing this over and over and over again, to the point where there's basically nothing left of ourselves. There's nothing left even to love, because we're just giving it all away and hiding it all up and suppressing it. We don't even know who we really are. So part of this process, of course, is learning who you are and discovering yourself. And I'm going to share some specific daily practices that really go deep, beyond the basic self-care, things that you can do that are very practical and that will really go deep to the root of why you're feeling this way. Why do you not love yourself? So what does it actually mean to love yourself? It's making or allowing yourself space for you, giving yourself the space and the time to just be with yourself, to feel yourself, to feel your body, to feel who you are, to feel alive, instead of always having to be busy doing something. Oftentimes we choose to grab our phones, right, and start scrolling, or open the fridge and grab something to eat, whatever other sort of coping mechanism or escapism it is that you use. We use these things to escape how we're feeling, to avoid having to feel the hard feelings or have the hard conversations with the people in our lives, allowing yourself to just be with yourself and just feel how you're feeling. Making decisions based on what you want and what feels right for you, not anyone else. Not because you feel that you should, not because you feel that it's your responsibility or, what will other people think if I don't do it? Yet, not in a selfish way, more so in a put on your own oxygen mask first way. I know that's such a common analogy, but it just illustrates it so well. Because the truth is, how can you show up for anyone else in the way that you want to if you're not doing it for yourself? As much as we think we can, and therefore we try, we fall short. And we know we're falling short, especially as women. And that's where self-hatred or self-punishment can come into play, which is the antidote to self-love, because it's usually followed by guilt, right? I know I'm not being the mom that I could be, that I have the potential to be, or I know I'm not being the best wife that I can be, or my best self that will then allow me, to show up for my husband in the way that I would like to. And so we have all these feelings of guilt or shame that come with it, because you know deep down that you're not giving all of you. You're not giving the best of you because your needs are not being met. So if you're sitting there struggling to breathe because you didn't put on your oxygen mask, it's basically just a recipe for disaster. And self-love is also not taking things so personally, not making everything about you. Because when you make it about you, you're giving yourself an excuse, a reason to punish yourself and start feeling bad about yourself and basically torture yourself over it. You're looking for ways or reasons to do this. And probably it's just become a pattern that you aren't even aware of. It's realizing that everyone has their own things that they're going through, even if they're not talking about it. And, putting yourself in their shoes, or at least understanding that the way people act is just a reflection of how they're feeling and how they're doing within, right? It's a reflection of themselves. It's not really about you. And the same happens for you though, right? How you are showing up. If you're constantly getting triggered, you feel irritable all the time, you're angry, you're frustrated or bitter, why is that? You may be blaming things in the external world, right? Like your husband or your children or your job, your boss or the government or the price of things or whatever it is. But really, none of those things are really that important for you that they would bother you that much if you were to feel good, whole, complete, loved, and like your needs are being fulfilled. If you feel whole within yourself, those things don't really matter so much. And so those behaviors are really just a reflection of how you feel within. And I'm going to share a personal story about this that happened recently to me in a moment here. But first, let's get into the daily practices that I've learned and that I've been implementing in my life that have really allowed me to begin to develop a loving relationship with myself, one where I feel safe, where I feel heard, where I feel taken care of. So the first daily practice is something you've probably heard of before, or you might already be implementing it in your life. It is meditation. I think all forms of meditation are helpful, and I do a combination of different forms myself, depending on how I feel that day and what I feel that I need the most. But what I do try to do every single day, at least once a day, is just practicing being present. It might not look like your typical meditation. I might even just be laying down in my hammock out in nature. That's actually one of my favorite ways to do it. But, I'm alone. My phone's off. There's no music. There's no nothing. It's just me and nature. So just the beautiful sounds of nature and myself. And it's just giving myself that time with myself, because I never used to do that. And I've realized how important it is for me and what a difference it makes on how I feel. It helps me fill up my own cup, especially when I do this in the morning. I think it's so important to do something like this in the morning that does fill your cup, so that before you, especially as a woman, right, before you begin to give to others, and because we can be so giving, nurturing, caring as women, that we often forget about ourselves, and we're pouring and we're giving from a cup that's already half empty, rather than first filling up your own cup and then giving from the overflow. That feels good. That feels easy. That feels natural. That feels abundant, right? Versus trying to give from a cup that's already almost empty. It feels difficult. It feels overwhelming, stressful. It's work. Now, if you've never done this before, especially if you haven't really done any sort of meditation before, and you are someone who your mind is always running and spinning, and you're having so many thoughts, it takes some time to get to here. And I think using some guided meditation can be a really good way to start. However, I am going to share a quick tip that you can use to practice the other type of meditation that I'm referring to. And it's really more just about the practice of being present. So you can even have your eyes open, but you're not focusing your gaze on any particular thing, because when you do that, your mind naturally starts to analyze it. So you really want to have kind of a peripheral vision and just take it all in, and just, go into your body and get out of the mind, clear the mind. And yes, you may have some thoughts come in, passing through, and that's okay. You acknowledge them, you notice that they're there, and you just let them go. I like to imagine them like putting them on top of a cloud and just letting the cloud drift away, and the thought goes with it. But what really helps me to get present and to stay present so that I don't have so many thoughts coming in is to actually pretend that I'm like an alien. Okay, so here's how this works. You pretend that you're an alien who just got here, who just arrived to planet Earth, and is in your body, is coming into your body, right? Like it decided to take your body and use it as an avatar to experience life on this Earth. It has no past knowledge, no past experiences, no future, no notion of any of these things. So it has nothing to think about, all right? And what I like to do is just, I close my eyes and I kind of imagine, okay, the alien, which is kind of really just myself, myself coming into this body. You can feel it, stretch out to the hands, all the way down to the feet. It's like I'm putting on a suit, a meat suit, a human meat suit that looks like this. And I kind of go through that because it really helps me to get into my body and just feel and to get present. And then I try and stay in that state as much as I can. And every time I notice I'm going out of it, I say, no, I just got here, right? I just got here. No past, no future. And that for me works really well, right? I have no past, I have no future. Then what are you going to think about? Nothing. Because that's all. Thoughts are always, they're either coming from your past or they are thoughts about the future. But if you have no past, no future, then there's nothing to think about. The other thing is affirmations, and I'm sure you've heard of them before as well. Maybe you've even tried them. And I think, on their own, they may not be enough, but I find they can be very complementary to other things that you're doing, right? Because part of the self-love is believing things about yourself, believing positive things about yourself, and letting go of those beliefs and those stories that you were told or that you just adopted and took as your own because of, things that you heard people say or that people told you, or experiences that you had in your life. Yet they aren't necessarily true, and they definitely are not serving you. So when you can begin to identify what those are, you can create affirmations that are going to help to rewire and reprogram your mind to shift its focus, reframe that belief into something that is empowering, that makes you feel good, that helps build confidence. So if you're not familiar with affirmations, basically it's just sentences that you want to write in the present tense as if it's already true, it's already happening now, about yourself, things that you would like to believe about yourself. Now, it's important though to do this repetitively because your subconscious mind needs repetition. Now, the third thing is when you are making decisions, when you have a decision to make, whether it's a big decision or a small decision, start to go within to find the answer. Ask yourself what feels right for you, what feels expansive, what feels exciting or like comforting, what lights you up, and then go with that, trust in that, and have the courage to honor that and honor yourself and what is truly best for you, regardless of how it may look or what other people may think about this. When you decide to honor how you feel and what you really want and put yourself first, what often happens is a chain effect. All these other things begin to happen for you, in your favor, for your highest good, because the universe responds to this. The universe responds to help you and to support you when it sees that you are supporting yourself. Synchronicities and opportunities begin to just fall in your lap when you do this. The fourth thing here is something called emotional experiencing, which I've learned from Teal Swan, from taking her completion process course. And if you'd like to know more about this, I'd be happy to go into it more in depth. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what this is right now. But this is something that has been very helpful for me, because when you feel triggered and those emotions come up so strongly, it can feel very challenging to stop that, to shift that, to just work your way through that. But also, it's important to acknowledge that your feelings are there for a reason. And when they come up, especially in situations like this, where they may come up strong, they feel intense and kind of out of nowhere, it's for a reason. It's because there was a trauma, there was some emotionally distressing conflict experienced in your life that is still unresolved. And it's coming up through this emotion as an opportunity for you to resolve it. So it's important to acknowledge this and really, be grateful for these emotions and not be angry with them or try to ignore them. It's really, I like to think of it as like your inner child within you who, didn't get certain needs met or had certain experiences that led her to believe certain things. She's coming up asking you now, your adult self, to attend to this, to resolve this. And if you don't, and you just continue to push it down or ignore it, then you continue to abandon yourself. You will continue to abandon the little version of you. That's one of the main reasons or causes of how we get to a place where we don't know who we are and we don't know how to love ourselves, because we've been abandoning ourselves. We've been ignoring ourselves for so long. Emotional experiencing basically just says when an emotion comes up, experience it, feel it, because you must feel it in order to release it. Emotions are energy in motion. They're supposed to move through you. But in order to move, you need to acknowledge it and you need to allow yourself to feel it. Sit with that. Just sit with the emotion until it's ready to move on, and just let it move on. And that's something I can definitely go into more in other videos, so please do let me know in the comments below if you would like me to do that. But that's the basis of it, and just doing that itself is an act of self-love. It's you showing up for you. It's you acknowledging your deepest wounds, your deepest, darkest feelings and fears, because the truth is they are a part of you. And if you don't acknowledge them, then no one else is going to acknowledge them. And therefore, they are parts of you that are basically being shunned. I really think it's necessary to practice this in order to develop a loving relationship with yourself. The other day, I was making lunches for my husband, who was working on our property, building a house. He's really busy. And all I was kind of in charge of that day was to make sure him and the other guy he was working with got fed. They had lunch, right? And so I was working on that, but by the time my husband came home to pick up the lunches, it was late. He was probably hungry. He was tired. He was also a bit stressed. I know he had a lot on his plate. However, I felt that he was kind of being cold and a little bit demanding when he came back to pick up the lunches, and I took it personally. But what I did differently this time is I just paused, and then I gave myself some time alone to figure out, where is this coming from? Like, yes, he could have said that more gently. He could have been a little bit more patient, but that isn't the real issue here. It's not that a big deal. So why do I feel so bad about this? Like, I felt it like deep in my core. Like, I feel so unappreciated and unloved. And I was like, where is this coming from, right? So I went inside, I laid down in a room by myself, and I began to just feel what I was feeling. And I went a little bit further and even asked, okay, where is this coming from? Like, when was the first time that I ever felt this? And it actually took me back. I sort of had a memory flash of times when I felt that way when I was a child. I was able to release it, and I felt so much lighter, so much better after. It just felt good for showing up for me. And I bet you, though, that the next time that happens, something like that happens, I'm not going to be triggered, or at least not in the same way or to the same degree as I was in this case.